Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always, told out of Voice of Radio. So today we need to take a look at the best decks from Genetic Apex, the Pokémon TCG Pocket set. Now, the other day, I showed you the best decks to make first. The best budget decks with things like Doug Trio, for instance, where you can flip a coin to get immunity while doing 40 for 1 energy. These are decks that you make early on in Pokémon TCG Pocket, when you've opened a few packs, you've got a few pack points to buy, some cheaper cards, you can do a few wonder picks here and there, but you're not able to build the really big decks full of holos and EXs and all of that. And I'll link that video in the description, so do go and make sure you check it out. Today, however, we are talking about just the best decks in Pokémon TCG Pocket. These are not necessarily going to be the easiest ones to build, but these are going to be the ones that I expect to see consistently doing very well for, well, the next few months. Do please remember that we are early, things can change, and the meta will evolve, but right now, this is what I think about the strongest decks. But let's start off with trainer cards. Now, in terms of your promos, as in not the Gen 1 gym leaders, I'm going to make it nice and simple. Every single solitary deck should be playing 2 copies of Professor Oak. Every single one should be playing 2 copies of Professor's Research, which has got Professor Oak on it. It draws 2 cards, you're playing 20 card decks. This is an absolute no-brainer. Every single deck should play 2 of these. And every single deck should play 2 Pokeball, but this comes with a little bit of a warning. And that is that Pokeball searches a random basic. We know for a fact that you're not going to be able to search your deck. We've been told categorically that effects that search your deck are not going to be part of Pokemon TCG Pocket. So for that reason, you want to play as few basics as possible. Just calm it down on basics. Don't play superfluous basics, because doing that is going to mean Pokeball is going to hurt you, and you don't want that. Okay? Now, the other cards which I would play as a 2 of in almost every deck, but could be cut for space, are X-Speed and Potion. X-Speed is the one that lets you retreat for 1 less. It's phenomenal. And you're going to be swapping your basic a lot. With only 3 points given up before you lose, there's going to be a lot of swapping your active to try and avoid KOs. There's a bit of bench hitting in the game, not a huge amount. So that is going to be a big deal. And similarly, Potion to heal 20 to stop giving up prizes is a very big deal as well. The other 2 cards which I think should be considered for every single deck are Giovanni and Sabrina. Now again, for most decks I'm making, I am playing 2 X-Speed, 2 Potion, 2 Giovanni, 2 Sabrina. These are cards that can be cut if you need space. Professor Oak and Pokeball cannot. They are 4 cards in every deck. Giovanni means that you do an extra 10 damage this turn. It's great. Helps you get over those numbers. And Sabrina makes you switch your opponent's cards to the bench, although they choose a new one that comes active. With 1 energy per turn, and most Pokemon taking a couple energy to get going, Sabrina will often force a Pokemon into the active that isn't able to attack, or at least is only able to do like 20 or 30 damage. This is a big deal. These are great cards, and I'm not saying they have to be a 2 of in every deck. These can be cut, but I am saying I'm going to need a good reason why not. So that's your general trainer line here. And then if you do find yourself with all the Pokemon you want, and there's a few spaces left over, we do have red card. Makes your opponent shuffle a hand and get a new free card hand. Can be very good if your opponent ends up with a big hand of cards, or even turn 1 going first. If your opponent's only benched 1, this will give them fewer cards in hand. Hand scope to let you look at your opponent's hand before a potential red card, or just to plan out your next couple of turns can be good. And then also Pokédex lets you look at the next 3 cards you're going to be drawing. This can actually be sneaky good if you're thinking about playing a Pokeball, because it tells you if it's worth playing that and shuffling your deck or not. These are really cards to fill out your deck rather than staples. Nice. So that's all the trainers you should be thinking about. What decks are you playing? Well, there's a couple of gimmick decks that I think we should have a look at. Duo decks, I'm going to be calling them. And it's Zapdos and it's Articuno. And basically, these are decks where you just play 2 of the EX and nothing else. The theory here is really rather simple. If I'm playing 2 of them, the game does not allow mulligans. It's pretty clear at this point. Mulligans aren't a thing. So you will start with your Zapdos or Articuno, and then the first Pokeball you play will hit the other one. Do bear in mind that with only 2 Pokeball and 2 Professor Oak, there will be, and I've played a bunch of the Zapdos one, I'll be honest with you. I haven't got to Articuno yet, sorry. But there will be times you just don't hit the second one and you lose because you don't hit your second EX. It will force your opponent into a 4-prize game, which is fun. But there will be games where you don't hit your second, and that is going to genuinely be a bit of an issue, and you will lose some games. But when it works, you know, you can play all of the trainers here because you'll have plenty of room for them. And Zapdos, you do 20 damage until you get free energy on there. Then you're flipping 4 coins, 50 for each head. Flip decently, you'll win a lot of games. And Articuno, 2 energy, 40, or free energy, 80 plus 10 to all of your opponent's bench, which will add up quickly. I'm not sure these are the best decks for getting consistent, huge winning percentages, but I am telling you, if you just play 2 of these with basically all the trainers I've shown you, in the order I've shown you if you need to cut some, you are going to end up winning a lot of games. As a side note, if you're playing Articuno, and honestly any water deck, do make sure you're playing 2 Misty. You flip a coin till you get Tails, after choosing one of your water Pokemon, and then you attach an energy from your energy zone to that Pokemon for each head you flip. You need to play a 2 of in every single water deck. So they're the kind of gimmicky decks. What about the good decks? Well, there's a couple of decks out there that have amazing power, and they are Mewtwo and Charizard. So if we start off with Mewtwo here, what we've got is 2 energy 50, which is decent. It won't get your basic Pokemon, but it'll do decent damage. And then 4 energy 150, discard 2. Now, 150 is amazing damage in this game. You will KO almost anything for that. But you've got to discard 2 energy. How do we deal with this? Gardevoir. And for what it's worth, your Pokemon line in this deck should be 2 Routes, 2 Curlier, 2 Gardevoir, 2 Mewtwo. That's it. That should be your entire Pokemon line here. You really want to be starting with Mewtwo every game. You'll have a 50-50 chance. But then also, if you start with Routes, then your Pokeball gives you a 2/3 chance of hitting a Mewtwo, for instance. And then, of course, things like your 2x Speed, which, like I say, should be in almost every deck. That is going to be very, very, very important here. And then Gardevoir's got an ability that lets you attach a Psychic Energy from your Energy Zone to your active Psychic Pokemon. So you get a single Gardevoir out, and your Mewtwo can hit 150 every single turn, and then you'll go and win the game. And though a lot of these decks are very easy to make. Like the Mewtwo deck, you've got a 2-2-2 Gardevoir line, 2 Routes, 2 Curlier, 2 Gardevoir, 2 Mewtwo, and then it's all the trainers I told you about. 2 Professor's Research, 2 Pokeball, 2 X-Speed, 2 Potion, 2 Giovanni, 2 Sabrina. Which, again, that is my standard trainer line. Sometimes you need to add a couple or cut a couple, but my standard trainer line here is 12 trainers, 8 Pokemon. This is my standard 12 trainer line. Now, the other one, which is a very, very similar deck, is Charizard EX. Because Charizard EX has another amazing attack that does a phenomenal amount of damage. What Charizard does, again, for 4 energy, is 200 damage, and you have to discard 2 energy. Now, this one is a bit harder to get going because it's a stage 2, but this will KO everything when it gets rolling. So with Mewtwo, we played a stage 2 to support a basic. With Charizard, we're going to play a basic to support a stage 2. And it's going to be Moltres EX. Now, this is a little bit flippy and a little bit awkward, I grant you. But here, we are only interested in Inferno Dance. Flip 3 coins, and then you take an amount of fire energy from your energy zone equal to the number of heads, and attach it to your bench fire Pokemon in any way you like. You should hit 1.5 so you should hit 3 over 2 turns. And then the theory here is that you build up your Charizard to the point where you're not refreshing the energy after you attack, but because Charizard is just discard 2, you're bringing it active with 5 energy, discard 2, attach 1, and then you can attack 2 turns in a row, which honestly a lot of the time should be enough. Bit more awkward than the Mewtwo deck because you need to flip for the Moltres and get your Stage 2 Charizard out, but it is a little bit more powerful. And again, the deck list here is very similar to my Mewtwo list. All you need to do here is swap out your 2/2/2 Gardevoir for a 2/2/2 Charizard EX, and your 2 Mewtwo EX for your 2 Moltres EX. Again, for me, the vast majority of my decks here just have the same 12 trainer line. Although a quick note, there is an argument here to cut Giovanni because Charizard's doing 200, but there'll be games you have to attack with Moltres. There will be turns you attack with Charmander, for instance, which does 30, but Giovanni on a Charmander means you do 40. With weakness, we'll hit 60, which will get most grass basics. Charmeleon hits 60, but with Giovanni we'll hit 70, and there's a lot of 70 HP Pokemon running around. So if you wanted to cut Giovanni for other trainers, you absolutely could. Me personally, I'm not, because in the games where you're not rolling perfectly and you're having to attack with other Pokemon, there are a bunch of times that Giovanni will help you hit that damage. Now, one deck I've seen a bunch of hype for online, and it's one that I like very much indeed, is Dragonite. I love Dragonite. Dragonite is awesome. Now, here, it gets a little more awkward, because you need to play your 2/2/2 Dragonite line. Dragonite, for what it's worth, has the ridiculous attack. Now, it is for 4 energy, but one of your opponent's Pokemon is chosen at random 4 times to be dealt 50 damage. It's 200 damage in total. It's ridiculous. It's a phenomenal card. But it's a stage 2 that needs 4 energy you need to get rolling. So you have a couple of options here. One option I've seen bandied around is Frostmoth. 2 energy, 40 damage plus sleep. The theory here with sleep is, of course, that you are buying yourself a little bit of time so that you can essentially set up your Dragonite. You're getting a bit of damage on the board while also getting sleep rolling. This works nicely. Obviously, if you play Frostmoth, you don't want your attachments for the turn to go to Frostmoth. You really want them to go to your Dragonite line. So make sure you're playing a water Pokemon. Make sure you're playing Misty. The other option I've seen people playing around with, and I kind of like this one as well, is Hypno. Same kind of deal, but it's a stage 1 that you just flip to put your opponent's active to sleep. I actually like this a little bit more because I don't need to attach any energy to it, and it can be working even when I'm attacking with Dragonite. Just make sure if you're playing this, there is an option where you can turn off the kind of energy that's generated. Make sure you turn off psychic energy, so your deck will only generate water and lightning. Otherwise, there will be turns you generate a psychic with Hypno where you really don't want to. That is very important. Here, you will be playing a stage 2 and a stage 1 line, so do remember you're going to have a little less room for your trainers here. But because Dragonite does so much damage, I'm happy here just going for Sabrina to make my opponent switch their active to buy myself time and leave Giovanni's out. So you're going to have your 2/2/2 Dragon line, your 2/2 Hypno line, and then my trainer line is going to be 2 Professor's Research, 2 Pokeball, 2 X-Speed, 2 Potion, 2 Sabrina. That's what I'm personally rolling around with at the moment. And then one of my absolute favourite decks right now, Starmie with Greninja. Now, I'm a little bit worried that there's a chance it doesn't pack the power of some of the other decks on this list, but I love Starmie, so I'm totally okay with it. Starmie is a stage 1 that for 2 energy does 90 damage. It's not flashy, it's not special, but it is a stage 1 that does 90 for 2 energy, and I like it very much indeed. Obviously, Water deck, so we are playing Misty. Biggest issue we've got with Starmie is the comparatively low damage output, so I'm playing this with Greninja. Because the ability Water Shuriken says that once during your turn, you may deal 20 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. I like this very much indeed, because you get this rolling. If you can actually get both your Greninja out, which is possible, then you're actually doing an extra 40 damage per turn. This one, again, the list gets a little bit tighter because you're playing a stage 2 and you're playing a stage 1 and you need your Misties. So it's going to be a little bit of a pain. But the line here is going to look something like 2-2-2 Greninja, 2-2 Starmie EX, and then 2 Professor's Research, 2 Pokeball, 2 X Speed, 2 Potion, 2 Misty. Unfortunately, no room for Giovanni or Sabrina in this particular deck, but it's one that I like a lot, so it's one I'm having fun playing around with. Those are the main decks I think are worth talking about right now, and I'm not saying there aren't any more. I've seen people playing around with a Pikachu EX Magneton Raichu deck. So Pikachu EX 2 energy, 90 if you've got a full bench of lightning Pokemon. Magneton lets you take a lightning energy from your energy zone and attach it to this Pokemon. Works on the bench. And then Raichu's free energy, 140, discard it all. But you play it with Lieutenant Surge. And Lieutenant Surge lets you move energy to your active Raichu. So it is literally a supporter card that moves all lightning energy from your bench Pokemon to your Raichu, Electrode, or Electabuzz in the active spot. I think this deck is a little bit awkward. It's not one that I'm too keen on for the moment. Pikachu's low HP can be a little bit of a problem. Relying on Lieutenant Surge is a bit of an issue. Discarding all the energy from Raichu is a bit of a pain. It's not a deck I'm terribly keen on, but I am willing to be proven wrong. This one could end up being a contender. I'm just not buying it right now. And then a deck that I adore is Marowak Dugtrio. And you literally just play all the usual trainer line with a 2-2 Dugtrio line and a 2-2 Marowak line. This is actually the deck I'm playing the most at the moment. I don't think it's a great deck. It's incredibly flippy. Like, super flippy. But Marowak, flip 2 coins and you get 80 damage for each heads. Double heads is 160, which for 2 energy on a stage 1 is absurd. And Dugtrio does 40 damage, but if you flip heads, you then don't take any damage next turn. Both great cards, but incredibly flippy. So I don't think it's a deck we can necessarily take terribly seriously, but it is a deck that I'm having a lot of fun playing around with. My early impressions here, and they are just early impressions, but my early impressions here are that the strongest decks seem to be along the lines of Charizard, Mewtwo, and Dragonite. But I do think some of the other decks I've mentioned here do have a good chance. And I've seen some people hyping Venusaur, but I don't get it, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't have natural support like some of the other decks we've seen here, and it's a stage 2 that takes 4 energy. Yes, I know you can heal up with Erica as well as healing while you attack. I don't like it. It's also super vulnerable to the whole sleep thing I keep telling you about. But 4 energy, 100 on a stage 2. I know it's got 190 HP, still gets one hit by Charizard. I'm not a fan of Venusaur. I know some people like it, and that's fine. I'm not buying it myself. I'm sorry. Right, there we go. That's what you need to know. And now it's over to you guys. Tell me which decks you've been playing around with in Pokemon Pocket. Tell me what you're excited about. Tell me anything you want to tell me in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, join a Discord, and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.